Some people who weren't there, obviously, was Elon Musk. What's the current relationship
Yeah.
there?
I think it's pretty fluid. Is that polite? They had their ups and downs, and mostly ups, but a couple of downs, and they kiss and make up after. I think, look, we've, I've had these discussions since the '80s. And if you're 80, if you're in agreement on 80%, then that you're in a good place, right? We are not going to agree on everything. It's interesting that there's pushback on occasion in the cabinet from one person or another. Some are more hawkish, some are more, America first. That's healthy. That's called debate. Elon Musk brought up some good points. He was right that there wasn't enough spending cuts. But I would argue we got the most spending cuts we could get. You sort of have to take the wins once in a while. There were more spending cuts in that bill than any other bill in history.
Yeah, and Trump
Now,
doubled
granted,
down
we have
on the
$36 trillion of debt,
yeah,
so we got to cut a lot more, but you
phenomenal
got to
figures. Yeah,
you got to
I mean,
walk before
Trump
you run.
doubled down. He doubled down on the big, beautiful bill, didn't he? He was very proud of
Yeah.
that and saying we're
Mm.
achieving more in just a nanosecond than we can achieve over several years. That was the big falling out with Elon, wasn't it?
Yeah, but there's some inside baseball here. Remember, Elon was disappointed there weren't enough spending cuts, but he was also disappointed that there were spending cuts in the electric vehicle mandates. Shocker. Teslas were subsidized by the American taxpayer for rich people to buy virtue signaling cars. Now, I want them to buy the cars they want. I really do. They can virtue signal all they want. In fact, Republicans started buying Teslas in the summer because of the mistreatment of Elon Musk by the left. So all of a sudden it became trendy for Republicans. But we buy. I don't care what party you're in. Buy the car you want to buy, whether it's internal combustion or electric. I think electric cars are silly, but that's just me. But it doesn't matter. By the way, they're
Why
great
do you think they're
cars.
silly?
Well, because you have to charge them, and then they run out of power after 250 miles, and there are no chargers because even though Biden spent a trillion, a few hundred billion for electric chargers, there's I think eight of them have been built. So it's just not we're not ready. And
Yeah.
and by the way, they also require critical minerals that are mined in the DRC by 9-year-olds. They require a lot of rare earth elements that we buy from China, and we're completely dependent. 90% of the inputs in a Tesla are from China. So there's a long list of reasons, none of which are involved, net zero or anything. That's not the point. They're just, but again, and also I like the free market, and those cars, they're very nice cars. I love riding them, when I have a driver or something. But the American taxpayer, the blue collar guy that drives a crappy old Chevy, he's paying for that $7,500 per car, and only rich people can afford them because they're $70,000. If charge $77,000 instead of taking 7,000 from the American taxpayer, and so there's I think there was some conflict of interest there with Elon, and that was pretty obvious.
Yeah, and it is interesting those sort of conflicts of interest. I mean, the other thing, the way of the future, as you say, about power, it's about this dynamic charging where you get charged as you go along, which would make sense and
Yeah,
more comfort for
that would be
people.
cool.
Have a look
That
at
would be
that.
really cool.